So we are back in the world of No Rest for the Wicked, and there has been a lot of new information that has come to light recently that we're going to be covering in this one, starting off with the newest information regarding the upcoming patch. The devs have been pretty vocal on this and shared a bit of details. Also, Moon Studio shared a bit of interesting and pretty expected information regarding the launch of the game. And finally, I go over some of your comments left in yesterday's video. We got a lot to talk about in this one, so let's begin. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Fervor Gaming, where you can stay up to date on the latest in gaming. This includes news, builds, and guides just like you see in today's video. If you like the content you see here today and want to help the channel out, drop me a like to get this video out to other gaming fans, but if it wasn't for you, change it to a dislike. So starting off, check out this tweet from Coral. This is one of the co-founders of No Rest for the Wicked. Our team is hard at work on our next big Wicked game patch with many additional fixes, adjustments, highly requested features, smoother frame rates, and less memory usage, less crashes on the deck and low-end machines. We hope to release this patch next week to celebrate our 1 month anniversary since launch. The time flies by so fast, and yes, it does. I was looking at the tweet and I was like, holy, it's already been a month, or pretty much close to a month by next week pretty much. And yeah, the team has been pretty active when it comes to patching the game. Probably one of the best dev teams I've seen, like regardless of my opinion on some of the game stuff, some of the game balance, or whatever the case is. Just know I really love how the team handled the patches, and they have been really attacking it, taking feedback from people in like their company, which is really great to see from leadership. We're gonna go over that in just a moment, which is really great. But yeah, it looks like the team is really like prepping for another update. If I had to guess, I would say probably like Thursday or Friday. They're very conscious about like the weekend because they know players like to play around that time, and I think that's really great because a lot of teams like to like launch it on Wednesday and stuff like that when most players are like working, which is kind of annoying. Moving on, now while we do not have the full patch as of yet, here are some of the upcoming things that we should expect that I'm particularly interested in. And check this tweet out from Michael. On the note of that video for trying out new weapons, do you think in the future you would rethink the stat requirements on weapons? As I, for example, would love to try out the moveset of weapons, but of course if they don't fit my stats, I currently can't. And Thomas Mahler, one of the other co-founders of the game, said this: the upcoming patch will feature try before you buy, which means that you'll be able to equip weapons even if you don't have the required attributes yet, but at less efficiency until you meet the attribute requirement. Thumbs up. So if you've ever played a Souls-like game, this is essentially the same system where you can actually pick up a weapon and use it, but your damage is probably going to be like negligible, or it's going to be inefficient how you swing it. This is pretty good mainly because it gives you the opportunity to try out some things. Like in previous like build videos I was working on, I got a really good like stat roll on a weapon, but the base was like terrible. It looks like we're going to be getting that in the game, which is a positive feature. But check out this next tweet because we got more. Some more insight into what we've been discussing recently. One of the biggest changes that Kevin Jordan Fell has been pushing for is a talent tree. Quite a lot of people brought up that they like to see more depth from our attribute system, and while we could add a bit of this and that to it, we're currently investigating if it wouldn't be better to just allow for even more depth by switching the attribute system to a talent tree entirely. What that means is that upon leveling, instead of just putting a point into this or that attribute, you would pick from one of the various talents so that we could get even more build diversity than the attribute system would ever allow for. This way people could play multiple strength builds that all max out with a different specialization. Would love to hear your thoughts. Now this is a massive W. Currently, I feel like the stat system is, I feel like it's a little bit more placeholder more than anything. And while it does work to some degree, there's some very clear like problems with it that has some flaws. I think in a video a couple of days ago, I talked about that they should add a talent tree, and it does look like they are taking that feedback, because honestly, a talent tree would fix a lot of problems. I think the biggest problems that one-hand or two-hand weapons have is that they're not able to scale their attack speed, and overall speed is not enough. I know that's supposed to give you attack speed, but that's clearly not enough. They're not able to scale like things to make them resistant to like hits. They're not able to scale their damage. They're not able to do a lot of things. They're not able to scale their stun. These are like fundamental things I think like two-hand weapons need. Like they need attack speed to be able to get their attacks off faster. They typically do more damage, but they get less attacks. And if they can fix for that, I feel like that would solve a lot of the two-handed weapons like problems, as well as maybe a little bit more damage because their damage is a little subpar. But again, again, this is just one example. With a talent tree, this is going to, again, give more build diversity and make it less like painful to just like try out things. So just with this update and the previous one that they talked about with Mr. Coral, 2 changes that's going to be making build diversity more like friendly for players to try out, because currently it's really hard to try out builds, and these are massive positive changes coming. Shifting gears here, let's go over some new information that has been shared from the No Rest from the Wicked team. I love when dev teams share this kind of stuff, but they shared with us in the numbers where they showed some stats. So as you can see on screen now, currently the most used weapon during the launch was the Blood Rusted Sword. The total playtime players have played for 680 years, or almost 6 million hours. There's players arrived at the coast and swam out and drowned. Has been 84,000 players have drowned. Interesting. Am I one of them? I drowned 3 times, but I wanted to teleport. There has been over 35 million deaths, and 6 million of those are to falling damage. Now, the fall damage, if you haven't like played it when it first came out, the fall damage was insane in the game, and it's very clear that it was very overtuned. I'm sure their data showed that the fall damage was crazy, because I've never seen a dev team just change the fall damage like that rapidly. But yeah, the fall damage was insane. I honestly feel like it could use a little bit more of a tweak, but yeah, 6 million fall deaths. Gravity is a bitch. On the next sheet, there has been 30,000 players who have beaten the Serum Crucible. I am one of those players. I'm happy to say quite a few times. I'm at like probably 200 kills at this point, but 30,000 players have beat it. So that's pretty nice considering how many players have like owned the game and played it. That's actually a pretty nice number of players. So congratulations to you guys if you finished the Serum Crucible. And for those of you who haven't, check out one of my builds that you see on screen now, because both of them will easily finish the Crucible. The strongest boss in the game was the Warwick guy. 2.5 million deaths is pretty insane, but the team did seem to take responsibility for this one, because I do feel like he was a little overtuned for maybe like a player trying to get into the game. He was actually relatively strong, so yeah, a lot of deaths. Finally, there has been over 7 million rats killed, and of course, get rid of those vermin. So many of them killed. I've killed so many rats in the last like month and a half. I've been playing No Rest for the Wicked, and I've been playing V Rising, streaming it here on YouTube. You can check out the VODs on the channel right now if you want to. But yeah, so many rats have been dying in the last month in video games. It's crazy. Moving on, as I say in pretty much every video, I'm going to be reading you guys' comments. If you guys have any comments that you want to express, talk about, leave them down in the comment section, and I will go over them in the next video, give some insight, my thoughts and opinions, and maybe you guys can, you know, just talk about it in the comment section. Recently, I did release a video called No Rest for the Wicked, Nerf Mentality, Fixing Armor Issues, and Making Enchantments Better, and more. And a lot of you weighed in on your opinion on it. A lot of you agreed with most of the stuff. I think majority of you agreed with the fact that they need to fix the armor thing as well as the enchanting, but a handful of you are not very happy about the nerf mentality, and I kind of expected that, because again, this is something that has been beaten into players' heads over the last year. So a lot of you just think that nerfing is the best. So we're going to go over some of the comments that agree with me as well as some that don't agree with me, because we do fairness around here. So our first comment is from Epion0485. He said this: I agree 100%. I think that the other idea is to have stats doing more than one thing. For example, strength to increase equipment load by 0.25. So every 4 points of strength also give you 1 equipment load. Dex to increase armor. This will represent your ability to dodge, mitigate damage, and so on. I don't want to see nerfs unless PvP is added to the game. Now, I do want to weigh in on this as well as the follow-up comment, because this is very important. And Mr. Yuzo Awesome said this: as Helldivers 2, nerfing is taking the fun away when the ability or stats is rendered useless due to simply nerfing or disabling the ability altogether. Yeah, this is a two-part thing I want to go over. So first off, yes, I agree that there definitely need to be some things with stats. I don't think strength need to increase equipment load. I think that should be reserved for stamina and equipment load. Just reduce stamina's like gain and then have equipment load, because stamina is something generally everyone needs, and equipment load is generally something everyone needs. And if you want to go like heavier armor, paladin builds that are like magic in armor, and they really need like that extra like weight for the heavier armor. And I think if it's pure strength that scales the equipment load, I think that devalues like some other things. But I get what you're saying, and I agree 100% that stats should give like secondary abilities, and I think the team is going to be working on that. So yeah, this is definitely a great idea. And for Mr. Awesome's comment, this is kind of what I was talking about when it comes to nerfing. Players get it in their head that nerfing is the healthiest way of doing things. And just to give you an example, and I kind of don't want to say this now because there's a comment I'm gonna like say this, but yeah, pretty much nerfing is not a good way to do things. If you have to nerf, but that should be your last resort, not the first thing that comes to mind that a lot of players like to do. It's just a miserable cycle, and I really hate the nerf mentality. And Helldivers 2 is experiencing this a lot. So our next comment is from Bree in Hackney. I think that's how you pronounce it. Your idea for enchanting at the end is exactly the same as the chip insert system. You said if you are a fire mage, you could go a % fire increase, but you can already do that with a slot. That is factually not true, and a chip ruby. How is buying the same affix with a currency any better? I do wish they had more variety of things to slot in, because it would be great to tailor things more. So I think you're kind of missing the point on what I'm trying to say when it comes to the overall scope of things. The reason why it would be better, at least to answer your question, the reason why it'd be better is because it adds more options. The problem with the current system is that it's very limited to, I believe, like less than 15 affixes. Most, if not all of them, are very situational in a lot of builds, and some of them are almost mandatory in most builds, like weight reduction and stuff like that. So what I'm getting at is to add a larger variety of things that can impact the game. I just use fire as an example because it's just something easy to understand, but it's functionally the same. I guess you're right, but the point is, it's not necessarily that you can slot things into your gear, because that's how affixes work. It's functionally the same thing. What I'm saying is you need to add more options, since a good portion of them are like not really usable for most builds. It's very situational. Finally, we have a comment from Salty Goat 9034. With all respect, I kind of disagree. That's cool. I'm glad you disagree. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Once you get some good gear, you're quite literally an unkillable god. This game feels like if Dark Souls started off good, but you were able to acquire self-healing, infinite focus, gear that makes you 4,000% more powerful than every enemy in the game, to the point you can just walk through every encounter pressing R1 at worst, or endlessly spamming abilities. So this is kind of the problem that I was kind of trying to point out, because players seem to not understand like what the game is, or what I'm referring to. So first off, quite literally, if you've ever played Elden Ring, I wish I had some of my old footage. I was fairly early in the game, and I can super beam pretty much every single mob, including bosses, and just one tap them. I'm not sure what games you guys are playing, or a Souls game that you're playing, for example Elden Ring, where you can't like just be unkillable and you can't just one tap things. If I feel like it, I may go look up a video of a build and just show it on screen where you cast one spell and absolutely decimate everything with good gear. That's besides the point, and not the point I was trying to make in the video at all. But this like take on you not being strong in any of those games is not the case. If we're talking about games like Path of Exile and Diablo 4, you absolutely smash mobs in a few seconds, and I can show easy footage of that. So the concept of you being too strong is just idiotic, because in Elden Ring, in a lot of Souls games, and in ARPGs like Diablo and Path of Exile, you absolutely decimate mobs, trash mobs, fairly easy once you get somewhat geared. The state of the game that we're playing right now is not the end game. So having the idea that you need to nerf things to bring the player down because things are too strong is illogical, because we're at the point that is very, very early in the game. Of course, you're going to one tap things because this isn't the full life cycle of the game. This isn't exactly everything that the game has to offer. The game is not fully developed. Therefore, your power is not like legit relative to the end game of the actual end game of the content. And even more so when it comes to the nerf mentality. If the player is too strong, why nerf it? Bring up the two-handers and bring up the bosses. You don't have to keep nerfing. I just don't understand the concept of making things always feel worse when you have the option to make things feel stronger. I don't think nerfs is a healthy place right now, unless it's absolutely game-breaking, which I don't perceive it to be game-breaking at all, considering how early we are into the development cycle of the game. Anyway, that is going to be it for this one. Hopefully you guys got some nice information. There is a lot coming to the game. There's going to be a massive update. I'm really excited. Once again, the team is doing a phenomenal job in keeping us up to date and willing to take feedback from players, which is really, really nice. Anyway, down in the comments, leave me your thoughts. Don't forget to check out the Discord down in the description, as well as my mini No Rest for the Wicked videos. And yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next one very soon.